Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session of English 204. Today we will be discussing thesis statement, and for this I'm using a handout obtained from the Writing Center at UNC, University of North Carolina. So before we begin, let's go over what is a thesis statement. A thesis statement, first and foremost, is the answer to your research question. Now that you've come up with a research question, or you know how to come up with a research question, well, if you don't, you can always consult the videos that I've posted earlier on Moodle. The link, or these videos are actually on YouTube, and you can see how to construct a proper research question. The thesis statement is the answer to this research question. It's actually a direct answer, one sentence answer to this research question, and it tells the reader how you will interpret the significance of the subject matter under discussion. It's also a roadmap for the paper, so it tells the reader what to expect from the rest of the paper. It directly answers a research question. It makes a claim that others might dispute, and it's a single sentence near the beginning of your paper, most often at the end of the first paragraph that presents your argument to the reader. So how do I create a thesis statement? A thesis statement usually comes after a little bit of research. I'm not saying go and do a full out, proper research. And this is why we call it a tentative thesis statement. It's a working thesis statement. It doesn't have to be complete. It doesn't have to be full. This is not the way it's going to look at the end. Maybe it'll still retain most of its elements, but you might change some things depending on what you find in your research. So you have to collect some evidence, and then you formulate your thesis statement. So basically, you answer your research question directly and make sure that the frame is there and that the 3 or 4 or 5 points you wish to discuss in your paper are there. And very importantly, that they appear in the correct order that they will appear in the paper. So how do you know if the thesis statement is strong? You know it's strong if it answers the research question, and it has a position that others might challenge or oppose. It's specific, and specific enough. The more specific, the better. You might say, well, I might end up with little to write about. That is not true. You will find out that you will have plenty to write about, because your paper does not only cover the points that you're going to be making, but also background information and literature review, etc., etc. So you have so much to write about already. So if you make your thesis statement specific, it'll be even better for you. Does the thesis statement pass the so what test? So if you read it and you ask so what, does it answer that question? So does it clarify the point or not? Does my essay support my thesis specifically and without wondering? So is it direct enough? So not only specific, but is it also direct? And does my thesis pass the how and why test? If a reader's first response is how or why, your thesis may be too open-ended, lacking guidance. So in order to see how this works, let's take an example this thesis statement. So let's say you're taking a 19th century America course, and the instructor hands out the following essay assignment: compare and contrast the reasons why the North and South fought the Civil War. So you say the North and South fought the Civil War for many reasons, some of which were the same and some are different, or some different. So this is a weak thesis statement for many reasons, because it restates the question without proving any additional information. It does not tell the reader where you're heading. A reader of this weak thesis might think, what reasons? How are they the same? How are they different? Ask yourself these same questions and begin to compare northern and southern attitudes. Perhaps you first think the South believed slavery was right and the North thought slavery was wrong. Now push your comparison towards an interpretation. Why did one side think slavery was right and the other side think it was wrong? So in the end, you can write something like, while both sides fought the Civil War over the issue of slavery, here you're being very specific, the North fought for moral reasons while the South fought to preserve its own institutions. This is a much better one. Now, some of you might think, well, do I need to reveal my plan from the get-go? Shouldn't I leave it hidden so that I can surprise the reader at the end with, my thought-provoking, amazing idea? And the answer is no. It doesn't work that way in English. It might work in Arabic, it might work in French, but it doesn't work in English. In English, you have to reveal it off the get-go, because your reader otherwise will stop reading. It's not literature. It's an essay, it's a research, so they have to know whether they should waste their time reading 15 pages or not, right? So it has to start from the get-go. You have to tell them from the beginning what your paper is going to be discussing. Let's take a look at one more example. So, for example, Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn is a great American novel. Why is this thesis weak? Because it doesn't tell anything. Yeah, we know it's a great American novel, but why? So you write, for example, in Huckleberry Finn, Mark Twain develops a contrast between life on the river and life on the shore. Okay, here's a working thesis with some potential. Right? However, it's still not clear what your analysis will reveal. It doesn't pass the so what question. So then you write, though it's contrasting river and shore scenes, Twain's Huckleberry Finn suggests that to find the true expression of American democratic ideals, one must leave civilized society and go back to nature. So here, this is an interpretation of a literary work based on an analysis of its content. This is really much, much, much better. It's focused, it's precise, it's specific, it answers the so what question, it doesn't leave you hanging. So you know exactly what the argument's going to be. So this, in short, is how you write a thesis statement. Now, what you need to start with is the following. Put down your research question and answer it in a full sentence following the guidelines that we discussed in this video, and you will have a tentative thesis statement as a result.